Hello everyone and welcome back to the Tech Team. Okay, so in today's video we are going to see which programming language is for you and which programming language should you start learning as a beginner. There is no specific answer, so let's dive right into it. Oh, we don't have an intro. Really nice, why not? So, which programming language is best for you depends in a lot of different factors. But I just want to say this to you. Python. What? We have to continue this video? That's all they need to know. But no, actually, the answer is a bit more difficult than that. But Python is the language that I would recommend to every single of you guys, every beginner that is just getting into programming. Python is a really easy language which you can do a lot of things with it. For example, Google is made out of Python. Instagram is made out of Python. And the list goes on and on. But Python is really easy. I just said it. But you need to know that it's really easy to learn. So let me give you an example. To just print something in the screen. With Python you have to type print and what you want to print in the screen. But now with C++, for example, or C or Java, what you have to do is you have to create a whole class, a whole function, and the list goes on. So for a beginner that knows nothing about programming, I think that Python is the way to start. So now you tell to me that I want to get into web development, for example, so I have to learn JavaScript. And yeah, you have to learn JavaScript, which is a language not really hard. You could learn it as a beginner. But if you want to get into web development, you probably have something in mind to create. So let's not talk about jobs right now. We are going to get into that a little bit later. But let's think about it. So you want to get into web development. You have to learn JavaScript, HTML and CSS. So you have to learn 3 different things just to get into the whole web development concept. But that's not the problem. If you have something in mind to create, you probably don't want to create it only for Chrome. You want to make it into Safari, Edge and all those different browsers. First problem, JavaScript, and not only JavaScript, again HTML, everything else is not going to work the same for everything. So for example, you want to create a website, but you can't do it in Chrome, Edge and Safari to look the same. First really important problem. So you have to learn a lot more things just to create a simple aspect in something. So I recommend you to start with something else. Or if you really want to get into web development, start by learning the very basics on JavaScript. Learn, for example, things in the console, so you get the main aspect of programming. So now let's just say that you're really into it. So you don't want to start learning Python because you know that you are never going to use Python. Now, because I said that, don't think that you're never going to use Python. Python is a really important language, so it doesn't mean that because Python is really easy you're never going to use it. No, that's not true. But you have done your search and you know that 100% you're not going to use Python for anything. So for example, you want to get into game development, but not just for fun. So you don't have 1 hour a day or probably 30 minutes a day, but you have 5 hours just to practice programming. I have a video that I share with you the best ways to practice programming correctly. You can check it out here or here, I'm not sure, but that's not the point of this video right now. If you want to get into something more advanced more quickly because you have the time to give, I still recommend you to learn the basics from Python, so everything else is going to seem to you easier. But if you don't want to do that and you want to get a job really fast as you can, then for example you want to get into Google, what you have to do, go to Google and search which programming languages they use. So if you know R, for example, you can't get into Google because Google doesn't use R, for example, and the list goes on for every other company. So look what a company needs and then learn the specific language. You can also ask me in the questions, for example, if a company uses 5 different languages, which one should you learn? And I'm going to answer to every single one of your comments. So with that being said, look the company that you want, which programming languages they use, and move on with that. Finally, let's say that you have an idea to create something for yourself or to upload, for example, a game or a website. We talked about those things before, but I want to get a little bit deeper into them. So you want to create a game. What you have to do? Learn the correct language. How you're going to do that? So for example, a big mistake that a lot of people do is that they learn Python and then they learn Pygame. Not a big deal, but I mean it's not that good thing to do. So you learn Pygame to make the player move, 20 lines of code. To make the player jump, 10 more lines of code. And to do all those things, you're going to lose your time. To create a square, 2 or 5 lines of code. So what you have to do is, first of all, search a game engine that you want to learn. There's Unity, there's only Unreal Engine, there's Godot, and all those good engines. So first of all, search which of those you want to learn. Let's take Unity, for example. You want to get into Unity. So after that, you have to search which programming language Unity uses. So Unity use the programming language called C#, which I'm going to start and create some tutorials, just putting it out there. So now that you know the programming language, what you have to do is start learning. Again, if you're a complete beginner, I recommend you to start learning from Python, the basics, and then move on to C#. So when you learn C#, move on to Unity. Start learning the UI of Unity. Don't get into any complicated code, because there is a problem. Unity don't use C# 100% like C# is. So for example, to print something in the console anyway, in C# you have to create a line of code that does not work in Unity. So you have to learn the basics of Unity and C# inside Unity after you learn everything in C# without Unity. So learn the language first, then get into the game engine that you want, and then learn the language again inside the engine. But that's not it. So let's move on a little bit to web development. There are a lot of sites, not sites, but you're going to understand what I mean. For example, Joomla. Not a lot of people know about that, so they start coding. What Joomla does is that it lets you create the basic UI and all that stuff. So if you learn Joomla, then you can just change the whole code. So you can add the button, to click the button and go to another page, and you can do that by just clicking buttons. So it's really easy, and then you can change the whole code. So learn again JavaScript, HTML, CSS, move on to something a little bit easier for you, but don't start with that, because you're not going to learn how to create a button, because Joomla has that. So you can just create a button by clicking a button. So what you have to do is learn the basics of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and then moving on to Joomla, which is going to help you, and you're going to have the knowledge. So with the basic things that Joomla does, then you can create whatever else you want. So learn first, and moving on to something that's going to help you afterwards. Again, learn Python first of all, a little bit, not every single part of Python, but learn the basics so you know how programming works, and then move on to anything else that you want, because C# is, you can say, an easier programming language than C or C++ or Java, but it's not easy with any means. So learn Python. I have a tutorial in Python for intermediate programmers and beginner programmers, so you can check those out. And with all that being said, I think that we can now end this video. I will see you all in the next one, and don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. So, goodbye!